You're listening to the Real Elevation podcast. I'm your host, Mike Hendricks, and here we discuss topics on personal fitness, well-being, and elevation of mind and body. Join us as we help build and grow a community of real, elevated men and women. If you're currently feeling frustrated, flat, and fed up with life, or want to be a physically and mentally elevated individual, you're invited to join us each and every week here on the Real Elevation podcast. Welcome to the RE family and get ready to elevate your mind and body. Welcome to the Real Elevation podcast. I'm your host, Mike Hendricks, and today we have another outstanding, informative, and elevating show for you. I'd like to take this opportunity right now to listen all our first-time listeners to the show, and be sure to stay to the end of the show where I will share all my social media links, connections, where you can connect with me as we continue to grow the Real Elevation podcast family. How are we doing today? So today is a special show because we're going to be revisiting our most download episode. At the point of this recording, this particular episode that we're going to revisit today has been our most downloaded episode, so I'm going to share it again with you because there's some real nuggets of knowledge in there that if you've missed it from previously, you need to listen. If you listened to it before, you can revisit it again and then just think about reapplying what we share with you. The episode was How to Eat Right, the Basics. 4 practical steps to look younger and feel lighter. That's How to Eat Right, the Basics. 4 practical steps to looking younger and feeling lighter. We're going to be sharing that episode again with you today. But before we jump into that, let me just share with you some real exciting news. That's something that's up and coming. So if you recall, towards the back end of 2023, I shared an episode where I was saying what's coming in terms of what we're looking to do here on the Real Elevation podcast. So today I can announce that we have opened our website, brand new website, Hendricks Holistic, and its brand new learning portal where you can access it for free. So on that website, there'll be a link where you can access our learning portal. And on our learning portal is going to be packed full of information, everything that you need to know about elevating your mind and body and finding freedom through fitness so you can live your best life. It's going to be in there. We're going to be adding to it weekly. Going to be things such as courses. There's going to be podcasts that you can listen to, exclusive ones that are behind there. We're going to be having special guests that we're going to be interviewing. You can access those interviews and those podcast episodes exclusively behind that membership and that learning platform. We're going to be offering you this for zip. Nada, nothing. You're going to be able to access it. All you have to do, once that link goes live, is register your name and you'll be able to access all that good stuff. Now, I'm advising that you do access it now, because once a certain time window has elapsed, we will be adding a fee to it. But for everyone that accesses it now, while we are in these early stages, there was no fee to pay. So I would look at taking advantage of that. I will share all the details in the show notes where you can go register and gain access to our learning portal, our learning platform on the Hendricks Holistic website. Okay, so that's it. I'll be sharing more about that in future episodes, so be sure to tune back in so you're aware and you don't miss out. But for now, let's go listen and revisit that episode. How to Eat Right, the Basics. 4 practical steps to look younger and feel lighter. Let's get into it. Today I'm going to be sharing with you how to eat right, the basics. 4 practical steps to looking younger and feeling lighter. Again, how to eat right, the basics. 4 practical steps to looking younger and feeling lighter. Now, the topic of diet and nutrition is a huge one. We could talk about this all day, all week, all year. There are so many different directions we can go when it comes to about talking about your nutrition and what is right for you. But I'm going to keep it super simple, as it said in the title of the basics, How to Eat Right, the Basics. Now, you may have been on a fitness and well-being journey for some period of time now. My typical audience and the typical demographic of the listener to the Real Elevation podcast is somewhere between the ages of 35 and 45, 50 years of age. So people who are not young by any means, but at the same time far, far, far from being old. But for most of them, when it comes to the nutrition, when it comes to the fitness, when it comes to their diet and lifestyle, they've got many unanswered questions, and they often turn to different resources such as books. Obviously, podcasts are very popular these days, looking at videos, trying to find out what is right for them. But the frustration for many people is that they still don't seem to find the answers. They still don't seem to overcome the obstacles and the issues that have plagued them for the first half of their life. But I'm going to hit you with some steps, some insights that I share with my clients. But before I do that, I just want to share some data, some stats with you that I found really interesting when I was doing some research on this particular episode. Now, firstly, there are over 100,000 books on diet and nutrition available today. Now, just bear that in mind, 100,000 different books available on diet and nutrition today. Diet and nutrition books are still listed in the top 20 of the most popular books purchased in 2023. So that was some research I was doing. So if you think about all the different genres of books, talking about fiction, non-fiction, romance, history, some big topics that people like to read about, fiction, science fiction, that sort of thing. Diet and cookbooks and nutrition books are still up there in the top 20 of most popular books purchased in 2023. Some other interesting stats that I found when I was doing some research: more than 26% of UK adults take prescription medications, and that was according to Public Health England in 2020. Going a little bit more further afield, obviously I'm based here in the UK, but in Canada, around about 65% of the people aged 40 to 79 take one or more prescriptive drugs or prescriptive medications. That's according to some stats from the CDC in 2019. And this was the interesting one that I found. So 47% of adults aged between 20 and 59 years of age reportedly used prescription drugs in the past 30 days. 40% of adults aged 20 to 59 reportedly used prescription medication or prescription drugs in the past 30 days. That was again according to the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey that was done a few years ago, but I dare say it would be very similar, if not that number is slightly increased. Now you may ask the question, why am I sharing these stats with you? Well, I think it's very interesting, and I think there are some lessons that we can learn looking at these kind of numbers and these kind of interesting statistics. One of the questions and one of the lessons we could ask ourselves is that, are we getting healthier or are we getting sicker? Now, again, you can have your own opinion on that, but from my observations, I think generally we are not going in the right direction when it comes to our health and well-being. And there are a number of issues about that, which again, in future podcasts, I'm sure we will discuss in much more detail. But as I mentioned, the headline for this episode today is How to Eat Right, the Basics. We'll be looking at 4 basic practical steps that you can use to look younger and feel lighter. Now, as I've spoke about before on my Real Rejuvenation Masterclass, one of the areas that we go through in one of the modules is talking about eating right, where we're talking about enriching food, making sure your food is ethical, something that's easy and enjoyable. But today I'm going to break it down to the basics. So, first step, number 1, eat a variety of foods. A balanced diet includes a wide variety of foods from all food groups. These are including things such as vegetables, fruits, meats, poultry, fish, tofu, nuts, dairy, or if you're not into dairy, whole dairy alternatives that are from organic sources. It's important to get a variety of foods in your diet. Now, research has shown that for the typical average male and female, their spectrum includes just a variety of 10 different foods or 10 different meals. So ask yourself the question, when was the last time you diversified from your typical weekly diet? When was the last time you introduced a new food type, a new vegetable, a new fruit, something that was seasonal, something that wasn't seasonal, something that was organic? When was the last time you did that? Now, if you're like the typical male-female, you've probably been eating the same type of food. So it's important that if you're going to eat right, understand what is just a basic step that you can introduce, making sure that you're eating from a wide variety of foods. Foods that are obviously ideally organic, but at least as close as nature intended it. So obviously we're talking about foods that are not refined and so on and so forth. So eat a variety of foods. Number 2, portion control. Making sure that you're mindful of how much you're putting in between your lips. Overeating, even healthy foods or foods that are seen as healthier options, can lead to things such as weight gain, inflammation, and other health issues as well. So be conscious of how much food you're eating. Now, one of the approaches that's very popular in the health and fitness space and health and nutrition space today is getting people to count or total the amount of calories that they take on board. Now, again, I'm not going to get into today why that can be misleading, and it's not really educating the end user, so to speak, about themselves, but paying attention to the amount of food is very important. So the amount of food you do need to be paying attention to. If you think about how we typically eat and the amount of food here in the UK alone that we waste, we do need to pay a bit more attention to what we're consuming and how much of that is being actually utilized and what we are doing when it comes to our typical meals and our food times and how we consume foods. So portion control is very, very important. You need to get to a position where you are very much in tune with your body and you know what's right for you at any particular time on any particular day, because the reality is that changes. But for most of us, we are not really in tune. And as a result of that, we just tend to eat more foods than sometimes we actually need. And on the flip side, we can sometimes omit foods and nutrition and certain vitamins and minerals that our body is crying out for. So we need to get into a position where we understand our body and what is right for us as an individual. But being mindful of the amount of food is very important, and it's a basic step that you can introduce today if you're not in an ideal place where you're feeling and looking at your best. Number 3, choose whole foods. Now, for many of us, it's so easy to go for convenience because we live in a world that is optimized for convenience. But choosing whole foods is going to help you get back to basics when it comes to your nutrition and making sure that you're doing what is right for you so you can eat right. Choosing whole foods or foods that are unprocessed whenever possible is going to put you in a much stronger position, going to energize, vitalize that body. These foods are, when I'm talking about whole foods, are foods that are in their natural state or as close as nature has intended. So they're not refined, they're not processed, they're not gone through any sort of modification. We're talking about fresh fruits, vegetables, grains, even meats. Often the meats that we buy from our supermarket today, they're filled with all sorts of things that are not really serving and not really designed to help to nourish our body. I'll give you an example. I'm fortunate enough to live within a couple of miles of a farm shop. And we now
get our meat from this farm shop. So, I'm not a big fan of pork, but, the kids like sausages, so we might get them sausages, and we'll get things such as lamb burgers, joints. And in comparison to the foods that you get from your regular supermarket, and I'm not going to name any particular names, the difference is night and day. And when I'm talking about preparing and cooking the food, so if we were to put the sausages in the oven, or the burgers in the oven, or the joints in the oven, whatever it is, the amount of things that come out of those foods when preparing compared to the meats that we would potentially get from the supermarket is incredible. I just invite you to, when you get, or if you get the opportunity, just to try it. When you're cooking certain foods, the taste and the texture is completely different. And this is why it's important that you understand you are, as Paul Chek says, what you eat. So if you're eating foods that are from a great source, they're, for example, grass-fed cows, they've been in the pasture, they've had a normal life, or you're consuming meats from your typical battery or industrialized, commercialized animal that's not being out in nature, not being grass-fed, not being out in the pasture, that energy is different. The foods that you eat are reflected and you're ingesting, and you're going to take on that energy, that vibration from that particular food source. So whether it is we're talking about fish, we're talking about poultry, we're talking about meat, we're talking about grains, we're talking about fruits, it's the same principle. That energy that animal, that plant, that vegetable, whatever it is, had when it was alive, when it was growing, you're going to absorb. Now, again, this is another topic, and I talk about this in a bit more detail with my clients, and it's just basically getting them to understand in simple terms you are what you eat. So that's why I'm encouraging you to make better choices, and one of those better choices that you can begin to make if you're looking to get back to eating right and following these 4 practical steps is to choose whole foods that are unprocessed, not refined, haven't got any sort of unnatural elements, additives, preservatives to them. And the 4th, stay hydrated. Drinking plenty of quality water throughout the day is key to keeping your body in a position where it's balanced and optimized to perform at its best. So, and a lot of people come to me and say, I drink a lot of tea, Mike, or can I have coffee? No. Water in its natural best form, when it's not being added to any element, is the best way to keep yourself hydrated and keep your body in a position where it's going to be at its optimum potential best. Drinking 4 to 6 cups of quality water is important. I spoke about this in one of the previous podcasts, how you can actually calculate the amount of water that your body actually needs according to your age and weight. I'll put that calculator in the show notes so you can go check it out if you've not seen it before. But it's a very simple but useful tool to help you to have a better understanding. And this is what it's all about, understanding what is right for you. I can sit down and talk to you, should do this and do that. I'm sharing what works with me and the thousands of people that I've helped over the years. And as my understanding about the body, about the nutrition, about how we operate as a human being and what's best for us grows, I'm imparting these insights and perspectives with you. And staying hydrated is key. So drinking plenty of water throughout the day, limiting the amount of processed drinks, sugar drinks, all those so-called popular diet energy drinks. They're not doing you much good. They might give you an instant hit, but long term they're not doing you much good. So try to stay away from those. Introduce things such as natural water or even herbal teas infused with water, healthier options or healthier alternatives if you like to have something flavoured in your drink. So stay hydrated. That is number 4. And I'm going to give you a bonus one now. This insight, this step is to consult a professional. If you have specific dietary needs or health concerns, I'm advising you to consider reaching out to get a consultation with someone who is a expert in that particular area. Now, I'm a holistic health practitioner. I've been learning and studying over the years on how people can improve their health and their well-being, but looking at it from a holistic point of view. So I'm encouraging you to consider reaching out to get some help, someone who has an understanding that what could be right for you, but looking at things from a holistic point of view. Often when we have these health and diet and even fitness challenges, we think that we have to do it alone, but often when we try to do it alone, that's where we meet many obstacles, get frustrated, get fed up and give up. So getting help, getting someone to assist with you, getting someone to offer you that insight, because ultimately, guys, it's all about you. As you understand more about yourself, you are armed with the information and the insights and the knowledge to make the right choices which are right for you. But until you understand about you, and that comes through a series of questionnaires, testing, speaking with people who may have had similar experiences, and until you get to a point where you really understand, or you're raising your understanding about yourself, because it never stops. It's a continual journey. That's something that I'm very much learning and appreciating. It never stops learning about yourself. Until you get to a place where you're raising the understanding about yourself, you're going to find yourself continually frustrated and fed up and maybe going round in circles. So speaking with a coach, speaking with a therapist, speaking with a nutritional expert is somewhere where you can save your time, effort and energy and avoid that frustration that you may have been having for many, many years. So that's the bonus. That's the bonus that I'm sharing with you today in terms of how you can eat right, the basics. I mentioned about those 4 practical steps to feeling younger and looking younger and lighter. So that's it for today, folks. Thank you for joining me on today's episode. Remember, we're here growing the Real Elevation family. So remember to share this podcast with your circle of friends and your connections. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And you can connect with me on all the different platforms: LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, and you can email me direct. I will leave all the contact details in the show notes as we grow together the Real Elevation community. Appreciate your time today, guys. Until next time, remember, be well, be wise, be cool, be calm, and keep it real. Blessings and chi from me. Peace.